Hello and welcome to another episode of Cards Unbarred. My name's Ryan, and in this video I'm going to teach you the 3 to 5 player trick-taking game Chasing Shadows, designed by David Spilinsky. The components in Chasing Shadows consist of 60 playing cards, ranked 0 to 14 in 4 suits, blue, red, yellow, and black. And the game also comes with 5 score sheets, 3 dry erase markers, and 1 eraser sheet. When playing with 5 players, you will use all 60 cards, numbered 0 to 14 in 4 suits. When playing with 4 players, you will remove the 14 from all 4 suits. And when playing with 3 players, you will remove the 11, 12, 13, and 14 from all 4 suits. In this video, we'll be setting up for a 4-player game, so we will use 0 to 13 in 4 suits. To set up for the game, first give each player a score sheet. Next, shuffle the main playing card deck and deal 13 cards to each player. If playing a 5-player game, deal 11 cards to each player. Players may look at the cards that were dealt to them, but make sure to keep them hidden from all other players. However, one thing to note, the backs of the cards do display the suit for that card. So during the round, players should make sure that all other players can see their card backs at all times. From the remaining undealt cards, flip the top card face up. This is known as the spotlight card. The other remaining cards should stay face down, but splayed in a row, and these are known as the follow cards. And lastly, the most elusive person will be the start player for the first round. Chasing Shadows is a must-follow trick-taking game with a little bit of a twist. Typically, in a must-follow trick-taking game, the lead player can play any card they want, and every other player in clockwise order must follow that suit if possible. However, in Chasing Shadows, the follow players will actually have to follow the suits from the face-down follow cards up in the display row. Chasing Shadows at its heart is also a trick avoidance game, and so players are trying to avoid taking high-value cards as they are worth a lot of points. However, there are ways to mitigate that through trick play, which let's go over some examples here now. So the lead player is going to look at their hand, and again, they can play any card they want, but knowing that the follow players will have to play one of these 3 suits, and knowing that this card is what you're going to win when you win the trick, which again I'll be going over here shortly, they are potentially trying to avoid that happening. So they are going to actually play this 12 yellow. Then going in clockwise order, the next player, and actually I'm going to try to keep these cards splayed a little, since again all players should be able to see your card backs at all times throughout the round. But the next player in clockwise order must play a gray or a red, since those are the 3 cards that are there for the follow suits. So looking here, they've got quite a few options for both suits, but they're also going to play a 12. Now, whenever you follow in the trick, depending on the suit you play, you will then have to discard one of these follow cards matching the suit you played. So they played a red card. In this case, there's 2 reds, so it doesn't matter, just discard one of them. But now in clockwise order, this player has to choose a gray or red as well, since both options are available. If this player had played a gray card instead, they would have discarded this gray one, which meant the next 2 players would be forced to play a red card. So paying attention to what suits are up here is very important during the trick play, and knowing what suits players have left in their hand as far as what you might make them play, or what you leave yourself to play depending on what you do. But let's go back here to the previous example where they had played the 12 red. Now going over here and looking at their hand, again, they've got both options, and they can do either this 13, which probably would win them the trick. So they're going to go with a 0 and just hope that the last player, when they play this red card, is going to be higher than that. So coming over here, looks like they were right. They've got a 2, 3, and a 10. They must play a red card. Knowing they're going to win the trick here, they're probably going to get rid of that 10. And they must discard the last follow card. And once everyone's played a card into the trick, to determine who's won, we need to see who's played the highest number that is lower than the spotlight card. So these 2 players played equal to the spotlight card. Whenever you play equal to or higher, you wouldn't be checking your card first. You're looking for players that played under, the 0 and the 10. Between these 2 players, the 10 is the highest number, so the 10 wins the trick. Whenever you win the trick, you take the spotlight card and put it face up in front of you to score at the end of the hand. The card you played into the trick then becomes the new spotlight card, And the 3 cards that lost the trick are all put face down to become the new follow cards. The winner of the trick will then lead the next trick. So again, they get to play any card they want. Knowing the rules of how you might win the trick or anything, they're looking to either probably play a 10 or higher to make sure that there's someone else who's playing lower and wins the trick. So looking at their hand here, I think they're going to play this 11 gray. And now the follow players, they have yellow, red, or gray that they must play. And looking that they have this 10 gray, they're going to play that. And they will discard the gray card, leaving yellow and red for the next players. And let's see, they only have an 8, a 0, or a 6. The 8 is pretty high, which means they are most likely going to win that red trick. Which they, I think, are just going to do that now. Discarding the yellow. Last player here must play a red card, which they've got a couple. So if they played the 8, they would actually win the trick. Whenever there's a tie, later played would win. So knowing that playing this card would make them win, they're going to choose to play the 4 red. So now they discard the follow card. Again, as we're resolving this trick, the highest number that is under the spotlight card wins the trick. So this 8 is the highest that's under 10. These 2 are above and that one's lower. So they take this red, their 8 becomes the new spotlight. These become the new follow cards. They would then lead the next trick. And let's just do another one here. And let's see if I can actually set this one up. I don't know if it'll work perfectly, but let's have them play this 11. And then now we have 2 reds, or 2 grays and a red, and have them play the red. Coming over, they only have a gray. It's going to be under. This is always going to be under. That's fine. Discard. And lastly, they're going to also be under. They'll play a 4. Discard. So in this case, they're the highest number that is under the 8, so they would be winning the trick. They would collect it, slide, flip these over. But what I want to explain here is in the situation where everybody plays a number that is equal to or higher. So let's just say this is what the trick looked like. In this case, the 8, 10, 11, and 12 are equal to or higher than the spotlight card. So in that case, the highest number played wins the trick no matter what. So this 12 would actually be winning. And in the same case, if there's multiple 12s played or multiple highest numbers played, the later one played would win. In the situation where a player does not have the suit of one of the follow cards in their hand, they may play any card from their hand and then discard any one of the follow suits. The card they play will still apply to the trick resolution, so you can still win a trick even if you don't follow one of the suits. You just have manipulation of which follow card you discard to eliminate suit options for other players for the rest of the trick. But trick play would continue like this until you've played 12 tricks or 10 in a 5-player game, in which case you'll have 1 card left in your hand. All players will take that 1 card they have and add it to their score pile along with any other cards they have. You would then proceed to the scoring phase. To calculate scoring, each player should add up the total face value on all of the cards for each suit they've collected. However, before calculating the scores, players should look to see if they collected an even number of cards for any suit. If they did, players should start flipping cards over, starting with the highest value equal to half of the number of cards they collected. So if we look at this player over here, they have 3 red cards and 1 yellow, which is an odd number of cards, so nothing gets flipped. But for the gray suit, they have 2 cards. So they have an even number of cards. So this 11, since that's the higher value, will get flipped face down. It will no longer count for scoring, which I'll go over in a second. But for this player, they have 2 blue cards, so they flip the higher value of the 10 over. This player has 2 red and 2 gray, so both their 12 and 13 of those suits will get flipped face down. This player only has 1 of every suit, so nothing gets flipped. And just reiterating, if they had more cards, like let's say this player had these other reds to make 4 reds in total, they would flip over half of those cards, again starting with the highest numbers. So the 13 and the 9 would get flipped over, leaving their 2 and their 6. If they had collected 5 reds, nothing would get flipped over. But let's go back to where it was when it was just the 13. So once everyone's done that and calculated how many evens and odds they had, they're going to add up all their scores and match them in the columns for the round you're in. So for round 1, this player would write a 2 on this space and a 0 for the gray. Now, one thing to go over with the zeros as well, you might have seen it, there's a little 15 in the middle of the cards, and that is used for scoring. During trick play, this is always a 0 card. But during scoring, if you only collect a 0 in a suit and you have nothing else, in this case they had collected 2 and flipped that over, they only scored 0. But if they had never collected a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, or whatever gray card, this would actually be 15 points for them. So zeros can be a little scary, meaning if you do collect one, you really need to make sure you collect a 2nd card because you'll still score 0 points, but you need to get something else to make sure that happens. So either way, this player has 2 points for the round. Coming over here, we'd add all of these in. So 2, 3, 7, and 6. And then over here, we've got 2 for gray, 10 for yellow, 8 plus 1 is 9. Since you'll notice they have a 0 in here, but they have other cards, so the 0 stays as a 0. It's only if it was by itself would it be the 15. And lastly, this player over here just has the blue for 6 points. Now, after everyone's calculated their score like this, you'll shuffle up the main playing card deck, deal the cards out to players again, set up the spotlight card as well as the follow cards, and play another round. After 3 rounds are played, players will calculate their scores and the player with the lowest score wins. However, before you actually calculate your score, players need to see if there were any suits that they only scored an even number of times in. So for example, if we look at this player's score sheet over here, for blue, they've actually scored it twice, which is an even number of times. So whenever that happens, you cross out your earlier score value. It's not the higher number like you did during trick play where the higher number got erased. In this case, it's always the earlier round. It could be higher, it could be lower. But in this case, they would cross out that 2. It won't count towards scoring at the end of the game. For the red suit, they've only scored 1 round, which is an odd number of times, so they don't cross anything out. For yellow, they've scored it 3 times, which is also an odd number, so nothing gets crossed out. But for gray, they have this 2, which they would cross out because they scored an even number of times. Looking at this player's score over here, an odd number of times, even number, they cross that. Odd and odd, those stay. Over here, they'd cross that 2 out. Nothing gets crossed out, nothing. They'd cross the 6. Over here, they would get rid of that 3. They would keep the 2. They'd get rid of this whopping 30 points, and they would keep the 0. After that's done, you'd calculate your total value. So 8 plus 2 is 10, plus 6 is 16. This player has 16. All players do that, and whoever has the lowest score would win the game. And in the case of a tie, the player that took the fewest number of cards in the final round wins. If that's still tied, then players share the victory. Otherwise, that's everything you need to know to play Chasing Shadows. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and I'll get to them as soon as I can. Thanks so much for watching.